Well, we're starting in an unusual place today. Instead of beginning with praise and worship songs, we want to begin with a message today to speak hopefully directly to where we are. Just want to share a little bit from my heart as I've been pondering where we are in these times that we're living in. And then after the message, we'll spend the remainder of our time just worshiping together and honoring our God. Uncertainty is a word that we're hearing in a whole lot of places. If you were to pull out your computer or your phone and do a Google search of the word uncertainty, especially if you click the news section right in Google, there will be a variety of topics dealing with the topic of uncertainty. From moments of uncertainty and war and peace was one topic or title. Walmart and Target CEOs say uncertainty looms. Another topic for the news is embrace uncertainty. Another one talks about recent grads or dealing with uncertainty. And they go on and on and on, each news article somehow inserting the word uncertainty to highlight the fact that the times that we are living in are not times that can be relied upon, suggesting that they're constantly changing because of what we're dealing with the pandemic, that a whole bunch of things are going on that are beyond our control, that are throwing us in turmoil to some degree. The unemployment rate that is taking place, the civil unrest within our world, the word that is used again and again and again is uncertainty. And I think many of us would agree that we have a general sense, a general feeling that, man, we don't know what's going to happen from day to day. We're not sure what we can trust or rely upon. But is it realistic or fair to say that the times that we're living in right now are more uncertain than the times we were living in before COVID-19? Or has COVID-19 revealed the truth that we thought we were actually in control, which gave us an illusion of certainty that was not our reality? James, in the book entitled James, chapter 4, has a word to say to people who are confident, or he says arrogant, who have an illusion of certainty about the times that they're living in. He has a word for them, and I think a word for us as we think about trusting our God who never changes in whatever times we may find ourselves in. Listen to what James says in James chapter 4, beginning at verse 13. Come now, you who say today or tomorrow we will travel to such and such a city and spend a year there and do business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring, what your life will be. For you are like the vapor that appears for a while, then vanishes. Instead, you should say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. But as it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting, he says, is evil. So it is sin to know the good and yet not to do it. James has very clear words to say to people who speak as though they are operating with a degree of certainty. It seems as though he gives a hypothetical situation that describes the mindset of people that he's talking to. He says, for those of you who think that things are so certain that you could say, hey, we're going to do this today, or we're going to do this tomorrow, we're going to go here, we're going to do this business, and then we're going to make a whole bunch of money. He says, come on, man. You can't talk like that. You can't think like that. You're operating with a certain mindset. He later tells us what's at the root of that mindset. But I just want to share a few things, few insights that may help us as we strive to trust in our God who does not change in times that often are changing. Here is the first nugget that I hope can help each of us as we continue with life and as we strive to be who God has called us to be. The first nugget is simply this: we are not in control. I'll say it again so you can hear me, because I know it's a struggle for us to believe it. We are not in control. As you look at the scripture, there is a clear reminder. They have the mindset, man, we're going to go do this today and tomorrow, and we're going to go do this business deal, and we're going to make a whole bunch of money. And then he says to them very clearly, he says, you don't know what tomorrow will bring. And he says, you don't know what your life will be like. Hear that. We are not in control. He highlights for them and highlights for us that we don't control time. We don't control tomorrow. Proverbs 27:1 says, don't boast about tomorrow, for you don't know what a day might bring. I mean, just think about it. Think about the plans you had going into 2020. Many of us were excited about 2020, had things on our calendar all marked out, had events that we were going to celebrate, birthday parties that we were going to hold, graduations that we were going to attend. We had so many things on our calendar, and we had no idea what tomorrow would bring in March, and no idea what tomorrow would bring in April, and no idea what tomorrow would bring in May, June, and July. We had no idea what tomorrow would bring. Even though we had our plans, we were reminded that we don't control time. We don't control what will happen today or tomorrow. Woody Allen said, if you want to make God laugh, just tell him about your plans. And we made God laugh because we had a whole bunch of plans. And then we had the audacity to be mad at God when the plans that we had couldn't come to pass. I think all of us have been reminded of the fact that we don't control time. We are not in control. We don't control time. We don't control tomorrow. We don't control what will happen tomorrow. But he also reminds us that we don't control our lives. He says to them and he says to us that our lives are just a mist, like a vapor. He reminds them of how quickly we're here and then quickly we're gone. We don't control our lives. I mean, it may hurt us to know that we don't control tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. But it's a sobering reality to know that when tomorrow comes, you don't even know what state you'll be in. You don't know what kind of mind you will have. When tomorrow comes, you don't know if you'll know who you are or if you'll know where you are. When tomorrow comes, you don't know if you're going to be healthy or you're going to be sick. When tomorrow comes, you may get news that somebody else is sick, or news that somebody else has died, or news that somebody's lost their job, or news that something's going on with your children. Or tomorrow may come and now you got to go pick up your children that you just dropped off at college. We have no idea what we will be like when tomorrow comes. We don't control our lives. I mean, our lives are fleeting, and we are frail and fragile. And because we are frail and fragile, on any given day, everything can change for us, because there are no guarantees that we're going to be our best selves on tomorrow. You see, the passage reminds us that we are not in control, but the second nugget that I'll drop is simply this: God is in control. I know we know it, but I think oftentimes we don't act like we believe it to be true. I think it's Craig Rochelle who wrote, and in his book, The Christian Atheist, he says that a Christian atheist is someone who believes in God, but they live as though God does not exist. Someone who believes in Jesus, but lives as though Jesus does not exist. We believe that God is in control, but we function like God is not in control. You see, the sobering reality for the group of people that James is writing to, and for us, is that God is in control. In order for us to embrace a Christian worldview that says God is the one who created everything, God is the one who established everything, and God, who is not an absentee landlord, is the one who is holding everything together. The God that we serve is in control. He's sovereign, he's reigning, and he's ruling over everything. And since we believe that everything is under God's control, then we likewise believe that everything in time has purpose. You see, God is in control, and the God who is in control has placed purpose in everything. That's that passage we quote from Romans 8 and 28, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and are the called according to his purpose, that the God who has created everything is somehow using everything for his purpose. He's somehow using everything to bring about something that he wants to accomplish in the earth and in the world. Every good thing, every bad thing, every up, every down, every adversity, every sickness, every suffering, every death, every joy, every pain, God can somehow take it and use it because it's filled with purpose. You see, the God who is in control is using things to accomplish a purpose. It's not random because he's in control. And the God who is in control has placed potential in everything so that everything has the potential to bring him glory and bring him honor. He says, man, I know you don't control tomorrow and you don't even control your lives. So you should say, if the Lord wills, because he's the one in control. And because he's in control, everything that occurs in life, whether it's a pandemic or it's unemployment or whatever it may be, it can somehow bring God glory. God can somehow take the messy situations of life, the broken situations of life, and somehow he can turn that mess into a masterpiece. I'm thankful for Jonathan Romaine, who is a close friend of ours since our college days at Bradley University, and one of the greatest treasures of our life that we have, that we possess, is a gift that we received from Jonathan Romaine, who is a nationally known artist. Jonathan one day surprised us with a beautiful portrait of our oldest son, Deveraux II, who has gone on to be with the Lord. He pulled up and pulled out this beautiful portrait of our son. And for us, that would have been enough. I mean, just to rock our world. Just for him to do a portrait of our son was a surprise and a blessing in and of itself. But upon paying closer attention to the gift, we noticed that the portrait was made out of something unique. We noticed that he made a portrait of our son out of broken pieces of records. He took broken pieces of records and put those broken pieces together, weaved them together in such a way that once you looked upon them, you saw our son. He took broken pieces, the mess of broken pieces, and from it, he made a masterpiece. And surely if an artist can do that with broken pieces from a record, surely our God who has created everything can take the various pieces of life and weave them together in such a way that they have the potential to bring him glory and honor. You see, as much as we celebrate the fact that the portrait is of our son, at the bottom we have to give credit to the one who created the portrait because it's his masterpiece. We are reminded that God is in control, and the God who is in control in such a way that everything has purpose. He's in control in such a way that everything has potential to bring him glory and honor. So what do we do if we can accept that we are not in control during these times and God is in control during these times? Then what do we do? What's our responsibility? Because when he talks to these people, he says to them, it was because of your arrogance that you thought you were in charge. It was because of your arrogance that you placed your confidence in yourselves, and such arrogance is evil, so get rid of that. But instead, turn to God, depend upon God, surrender to God. So what do? A few things. First, I think we can cultivate a habit of obedience, because he says to them, it's sin to know the good that we ought to do and to not do it. He talks to them about the sin of omission. Many of us know if you tell a child not to do something and the child does it, then that's wrong. But we also know that if you tell a child to do something like make sure you clean up your room or make sure you take out the trash, then if they don't do that, then that's likewise wrong. And for us as adults, oftentimes we think about sin from the perspective of, I just need to make sure that I don't do all the things God told me not to do. That if God told me don't steal, then I make sure I don't steal. If God told me don't lie, I need to make sure that I don't lie. But sometimes and oftentimes we forget to do the things that God told us to do. So when God tells us to rejoice when we're persecuted for his sake, or God tells us to be the light to the world and let our light shine before the world, when God tells us to be reconciled to one another, when God tells us to go the second mile or to love our enemies, or when God tells us to pray, or when God tells us to study, to know to do good and not do it, he says is sin. So what should we do? Each of us during these times should cultivate a habit of obedience. We should make it a habit to just do what we know to do. For most of us, we know more than we obey. For most of us, we have more information about what God has told us to do than we apply. So we develop the habit where, you know what, as soon as I learn something, I just want to apply it. I want to obey it. I want to do it, so that as we cultivate a habit of obedience, it really won't matter what times we're living in, because we fostered a lifestyle of obedience. I would encourage us as well, what should we do? I would encourage us to practice daily dependence upon God. It's simple. Cultivate a habit of obedience, and during these times, practice daily dependence upon God. And I want to be very practical when I talk about practicing daily dependence upon God. For example, before we get out of bed, as soon as we wake up, as soon as we open our eyes, before we get out of the bed, let's just acknowledge him and say, God, I just want to thank you for the day. I don't know what the day will bring, but I'm glad that I know that you hold the day. Before we leave the house and start the day, maybe we should seek him and say, God, I just want you to order my steps today. I don't know what I will encounter. I don't know who I will encounter, but I want to seek you so you can order my steps, so that whatever I say, that it is honoring to you, that whatever I'm thinking, that it is pleasing to you, that my actions are a reflection of you. So we seek him and say, okay, God, help me with the day. And then throughout the day, then we can look to him and say, God, can you give me wisdom? I've encountered some things that I didn't expect to encounter. I've received some news that kind of broke my heart. Can you give me wisdom to know how to respond, how to apply that which I've learned in this situation, so that you can receive honor and you can receive glory and Jesus can be exalted? And then as we end the day, we can thank him for the day. To say, God, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to live this day. And I hope that my choices, that my attitude, that my actions brought you glory and honor throughout the day. And where I missed it, I trust that you'll help me to make the corrections. I thank you that your acceptance of me is not based on my performance, but your acceptance of me is based on who you are. So God, I rest in the fact that you are my loving Father. So as I lay my head down to sleep tonight, I trust you to keep me. And if you choose to take me, I'm thankful that you've prepared a place for me. Can I encourage us to develop a lifestyle of dependence upon God, so that as Jesus taught us, that we can abide in him, because we know that apart from him, we can do nothing. You see, when we develop a dependence upon God, it really doesn't matter what's going on around us, because we know that we have a God who can be trusted. So even when the storms of life come and they begin to rage, and sometimes we become fearful or frightened or afraid, like little bitty children who run to their parents and cling to them in the midst of storms and lightning and want to sleep in the bed with them, we can run to our Heavenly Father. We can run to our Daddy and cling to him and hold on to him, knowing that just because we're in his presence, things are better. You see, for children in the presence of their parents can't control the storms. But for us, in the presence of our Heavenly Father, we are in the presence of the one who controls the universe. So he can keep us, and he can keep everything around us. During these times, it is my prayer that we would trust that even though it may seem as though it's uncertain, that we have a God who can be trusted, a God who can be relied upon. And as we choose to trust our unchanging God in changing times, we trust that he'll bring us through whatever the times may bring to us. So cling to this God who can be trusted in times like these. I want to encourage us as we ponder this word. Some of us may have some things that we want to get off of our chest and share from our heads and our hearts to God. Some things we want to pray to God about, talk to God about. Or you may have some things that you say, you know what, I know I've been praying, but I want some other people to partner with me. We have the opportunity on the app and on the website for you to be able to submit your prayer requests. I want to encourage you to submit those prayer requests right now. We want to partner with you in prayer so that in these changing times, challenging times, what some would say are uncertain times, we can cling to our God who does not change together. So submit your prayer requests and give us the opportunity to seek the face of our Daddy together and trust him in times like these.